When my sister called me crying, saying her cafe was days away from shutting down, I didn't think twice. I wired her $150,000. No questions asked. She said I was saving her dream. But a week later, I'd never seen my sister Linda cry before. Sure, we'd had our moments. She was dramatic, always had been. I'm not sure if it was because we were so close growing up or because we were just different people, but I always felt like I could read her. I knew when something was bothering her. But this call, it was different. Her voice trembled as if she were on the verge of collapse. "Alex," she started, her words stumbling over each other. "The cafe, I can't hold on any longer. The bills, the suppliers, they're cutting us off. If I don't get $150,000, I'm going to lose everything." I could hear the weight of her words, but more than that, I could hear the panic. Linda's voice was always strong, confident, but right then it sounded small and fragile. She wasn't the person who begged. She wasn't the person who let others see her vulnerabilities. And yet here she was, pleading. I didn't even hesitate. "Of course, Linda, I'll help you. Just tell me what needs to be done." I'd built my life in the tech world. I had money, success, options. I wasn't the most emotional guy, but I'd always felt this pull to protect Linda. She was my little sister, and I wanted to see her succeed. The cafe wasn't just some business to her, it was her dream. She'd worked so hard to get it off the ground, putting everything she had into making it a warm, welcoming place. It was more than a business. It was her identity. It's how she connected with people, how she proved to herself she could do something on her own. I admired that about her, the way she could take something so simple, a cup of coffee, and turn it into a haven for the community. It hurt me to think that she might lose it, and I knew that, as her older brother, I had the means to help. So when she asked for $150,000, I agreed without even batting an eye. I called my lawyer to arrange a loan agreement, something formal, just in case. I wasn't about to let her off the hook completely. Business is business, even with family. But I didn't think it would come to that. I thought this was just a safety net, a formality. When I handed her the check, I told her, "This is a loan, Linda. I'm doing this because I love you, but I need to know that you'll be able to pay me back." She nodded, assuring me that everything would be fine. "Don't worry, Alex, I'll pay you back, and the cafe will be back on its feet in no time." It felt like the right thing to do. I believed her. I wanted to believe her. I thought I was doing the right thing, supporting her in her time of need. But that was before the silence. The first few days after I handed over the money were calm. Linda was still in touch, still trying to reassure me. "The cafe's doing better," she'd say. "We're working on getting the new suppliers on board. I'm feeling good about this." I wanted to believe her, but something didn't sit right with me. It wasn't like Linda to be so vague, so distant. She was always a planner, always had things figured out. But now there were no details, no concrete plans, just vague assurances that everything was going to be fine. At first, I chalked it up to the stress of running a business. I knew how it was, long hours, constant problems. But then the texts started to slow down. The phone calls became fewer. When I tried reaching out, her responses were short, even dismissive. I thought, she's just busy, but deep down, I knew. I could feel it. Something was wrong. The silence felt like it was growing, spreading like a crack in a glass. I tried not to overthink it, but my gut was telling me this wasn't right. Linda would always tell me everything, even the smallest details. It was part of who she was, the way she shared every little triumph and every setback. But now she wasn't sharing anything. She wasn't even picking up the phone. I waited. Days passed. Nothing. It was a week later when I started digging. I'm not proud of it. It felt like I was betraying her trust, but I needed to know. So I hired a private investigator. He didn't ask questions, just did his job. I wasn't sure what I was expecting to find, but the nagging feeling in my gut told me that whatever it was, I wasn't going to like it. A few days after the investigator started his work, I received a phone call. It was from him. "Mr. McLean," he said, "I've been looking into your sister's business, and I think you need to know what's going on." My heart skipped a beat. I couldn't speak for a moment. What do you mean? She's not using the loan to save the cafe, sir. In fact, the cafe's in worse shape than it's been in months. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. I had already suspected, but hearing it confirmed made my stomach turn. The loan? Where is it going? I asked, my voice shaking. There was a pause on the other end of the line before the investigator replied. We've traced it. Your sister used most of it to buy a property, a beach house, in Miami. My hands shook as I held the phone, a mix of anger and disbelief flooding through me. A beach house? My sister, the woman I'd supported, had taken the money I gave her to save her business, and she'd bought herself a mansion by the beach. I felt betrayed. I felt stupid. The rage simmered under my skin, but I wasn't going to confront her immediately. I didn't want to show my cards just yet. I needed to think. I needed to plan. I had no intention of letting this slide, but I also wasn't sure what I was going to do next. I felt lost. How could she do this to me? How could she betray me like this? The next day, I saw her post on social media. The photo of her smiling, standing in front of the beach house, with that caption, "A new life begins here." I stared at it, unable to tear my eyes away. My blood boiled. A new life. She was toying with me, flaunting her betrayal in my face. And I was supposed to be okay with it? I wanted to call her, yell at her, demand an explanation. But I didn't. Not yet. Something inside me snapped. No more emotions, no more blindly trusting. This wasn't about family anymore. This was about betrayal, and I wasn't going to let her get away with it. I sent her a text. We need to talk. But I already knew what I was going to hear when I called her. She wasn't going to apologize. She wasn't going to take responsibility. She'd make excuses. She'd blame me. And I was right. When she finally picked up, I could hear it in her voice. The same tone she used when she didn't want to deal with something, when she wanted to push it away. Alex, what's the problem now? She said. I saw the post, Linda, I said, keeping my voice calm. The beach house, Miami. I gave you $150,000 to save your business, and you used it for this? She laughed, a sharp, dismissive sound. Oh, come on, you're always so uptight about money. You don't get it, do you? I needed a fresh start. The cafe was going under, and I couldn't keep fighting for it. But now I have everything I want. And just like that, she was gone. That was the end of the conversation. But it wasn't the end of this. I wasn't going to let her get away with it. Not like this. It took me a few days to calm down enough to think. The rage that boiled in me when I first found out about Linda's betrayal still hadn't fully faded. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that post, the smiling face, the caption that taunted me like a cruel joke. A new life begins here. It felt like a slap in the face. But what really ate at me wasn't just the money, it was the trust. I had given her everything. She was my sister, my flesh and blood, and I'd stood by her through everything. And this was how she repaid me? It felt like a personal betrayal, not just a business mistake. I could have handled a failed business, bad investments, anything else. But this was a lie, a betrayal of everything I believed about family. I spent the next few days watching her from the shadows. I didn't confront her, not yet. I couldn't trust myself to speak to her calmly. Instead, I sat behind my computer screen, scrolling through her social media posts. She was living it up in Miami, posing in front of the beach house like it was some sort of victory. Meanwhile, I was drowning in anger and confusion. She had gotten what she wanted, and I was left with the wreckage. But it wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about her manipulation. She made it sound like she was doing this for the good of the cafe. She made it sound like she had no choice, like she was the victim. And now? Now I knew it was all a lie. The next thing I did was simple but effective. I started gathering information. I hired a lawyer, one of the best I knew, and set up a meeting. I didn't know what I was going to do yet, but I needed to know my options. I wanted to be prepared. I think we have a case, my lawyer Peter said after hearing me out. You have a signed loan agreement. If she's misused the funds, especially if the money was intended for her business, you could potentially sue for fraud. The word hung in the air, And for the first time since all this had started, I felt like I had some control over the situation. I wasn't powerless anymore. I wasn't just the betrayed brother sitting in silence. Peter advised me to hire a private investigator to follow up on the cafe's financial situation, just to be sure. I agreed without hesitation. Over the next few weeks, the investigator came back with damning information. The cafe wasn't just doing poorly, it was circling the drain. The debts were mounting, the bills unpaid. Linda wasn't just neglecting the business, she was actively running it into the ground. The worst part? She was hiding it from me. Not just the fact that the business was failing, but the fact that she was using the money I'd given her for her own personal gain. The mansion, the luxury lifestyle, it was all funded by my trust, the trust I had placed in her. I couldn't understand how it had gotten this far. She had looked me in the eye when I handed her that check. She had promised me that the cafe would bounce back. "Everything will be fine, Alex. I'll pay you back. I swear it." The words echoed in my mind, and each time I replayed them, they felt more like a betrayal. I couldn't even look at her the same way anymore. She had turned into someone I didn't recognize, someone who would lie, cheat, and manipulate me for her own gain. The more I learned, the more my anger grew. But I didn't want to give in to it. Not yet. I had to stay calm. I had to plan. I spent the next few weeks collecting everything I could. Bank statements, receipts, loan agreements, and private investigator reports. Every single piece of evidence that showed what Linda had done with the money. I wasn't going to let this go unnoticed. Then one day, as I was sitting at my desk, going through the files, I saw a post from Linda. It was a video this time. She was standing on the balcony of her beach house, the sun setting behind her, looking like the picture of success. The caption read, "New beginnings. Sometimes you have to take a risk to start fresh." I was seething. A risk. She was flaunting her betrayal in my face like it was some sort of victory. She was rubbing it in, making it seem like this was all part of some bigger plan, like she had come out on top. And what was I? The sucker who'd fallen for her lies. I didn't respond. Not yet. But I couldn't let it go. This had gone beyond the money. It had become personal. And now I wasn't just a brother anymore. I was a man who had been deceived, and I was going to make sure she paid for it. The weeks passed, and I gathered everything I needed. I had the legal grounds to take action, but I wasn't just going to sue her. That wouldn't be enough. It wouldn't give me the satisfaction I was looking for. It wouldn't make her truly understand what she'd done. I was planning something bigger, something more fitting, but I wasn't ready to make my move just yet. Linda still didn't know what I had found out. She still thought she had gotten away with it, and that made everything so much sweeter. A month later, I called Peter again. "I want to move forward," I said. "I want to take her to court." Peter paused for a moment. "You're sure? This is going to get ugly." "I don't care," I said, my voice cold. "I'm done playing nice." The next time I spoke to Linda, it was in the courtroom. The words I'd wanted to say for so long finally spilled out. "You lied to me, Linda. You took my money, my trust, and you used it for your own selfish desires. You don't get to walk away from this. You'll have to face the consequences." Her face went pale when the judge delivered the verdict. The beach house was now mine, legally. The money she owed me had turned into a debt she couldn't pay, and now she had lost everything. The house, the cafe, the reputation. And I was going to make sure she never forgot the price of betrayal. The days after the trial passed in a blur. I could barely sleep, but when I did, I dreamt of the courtroom, of Linda's face when the verdict was read. There was no victory in it for me, not really. The satisfaction was empty, and the bitterness lingered in my chest like a stone lodged too deep to remove. I spent the first few weeks focused on the legal aftermath, the house, the assets, the money she owed. It was all going to be mine now. I had a plan, a quiet, meticulous plan that would extract every last ounce of what I was owed. But it wasn't just about the house or the money anymore. I wanted to teach Linda a lesson. I wanted her to understand the cost of playing with someone's trust, of treating family like a means to an end. But for now, I had to remain patient. I'd heard whispers about Linda's state, about the cafe's impending auction, about the fact that she was losing everything. But I wasn't going to offer her any sympathy. I wasn't going to let her see my hand. Not yet. I stayed silent. I kept my distance, watching from afar, but never engaging. Every time I saw a post from Linda on social media, I clicked on it, my eyes scanning for clues. Every time she posted something that made her life look good, like that one of her standing in front of the beach house, I clicked like, my finger lingering on it a moment longer than necessary. It was all part of the game, part of my silent observation. Let her think she had won. Let her believe she had gotten away with it. I'd learned to be patient, to let the silence speak for me, to let the quiet weight of what was coming sink in, slowly, gradually. I didn't confront her again. I didn't need to. The court had already done that for me, but I wanted to see her fail. I wanted to see her squirm and fight, knowing that she was losing everything, and I wanted to make sure I was the one who pushed her over the edge. The investigator had been gathering information for weeks. The more I learned, the more my resolve hardened. Linda was scrambling to save face, but it was obvious she had no idea how deep the hole was that she had dug for herself. She was drowning, and she didn't even know it yet. The cafe was still failing. She wasn't making enough to pay back her debts, and the creditors were closing in. In fact, they were now threatening to seize the property and assets if she didn't pay up. It didn't help that she had borrowed money from friends, from investors, from anyone who would listen, people who were now turning on her like wolves at the scent of blood. It wasn't just the business that was collapsing. Linda's reputation was crumbling, and I could see it happening. Slowly but surely, people were talking. They were starting to realize what had really happened, what she had done with the loan money. And it was only a matter of time before her little world of lies and deception came crashing down. The weight of the truth was too much for her to carry. She had no idea what was coming. A week after the court decision, I hired a team to start renovations on the beach house. I didn't even need to step foot inside it. The workers were handling everything. It was now my property, and I wasn't going to let it sit empty. I had plans for it, big plans. But for now, it was just a quiet reminder of everything Linda had lost, a monument to her betrayal. Every time I walked by the house, I couldn't help but think about how this place, the symbol of her new life, was about to become the thing that sealed her downfall. I wasn't going to let it remain a luxury escape for her. No, it would serve as a reminder of the price she'd paid. But it wasn't just about the house or the money anymore. I had to stay focused on the bigger picture. I still hadn't spoken to Linda since the trial. Part of me knew that I didn't need to. She had her life, and I had mine. But another part of me wanted her to see what I was doing. I wanted her to know that, in the end, she had lost more than just a cafe and a house. She had lost her place in my life. I waited, observing her every move. She posted about her struggles, about her sadness at losing the cafe. The sympathy poured in from her followers, friends who had no idea what she had done. They thought she was the victim, the one who had tried so hard and failed. They didn't know the truth, and I wasn't about to be the one to tell them. No, that was a part of my plan too. I wanted them to think she was innocent. I wanted them to believe the lie, just like she had wanted me to believe it. But the difference was that I knew the truth. I knew exactly who she was now, and I was letting her destroy herself, piece by piece, without lifting a finger. The silence stretched on for weeks. Linda's posts became more desperate, more frantic. She was scrambling, trying to hold on to whatever she could. But I could feel the weight of it all pressing in on her. The debts, the reputation, the lies. It was only a matter of time before she cracked, and when she did, I'd be there to pick up the pieces. And when she finally understood that she had lost everything, when the realization hit her like a freight train, that's when I'd make my final move. Because in the end, it wasn't just about the money. It wasn't about the house. It was about making sure she understood the cost of betraying me. And I would make sure she remembered that lesson every single day. A year. It took a full year for everything to fall into place. A year of waiting, of watching, of carefully playing my hand like an expert chess player. And in that year, the pieces began to align, slowly but with a terrifying precision. By now, the cafe was in a state of disrepair. The doors were closed most days, and when they were open, there was hardly any traffic. Linda was barely holding things together. The mounting debts were choking the life out of her business, and she didn't even seem to realize how much worse it was getting. She had stopped posting pictures of the new life in Miami, but her silence spoke volumes. She was no longer the confident, carefree woman who had asked for my help. She was desperate. She was drowning. It was then that I made my move. I called in the lawyer I had been working with for months. The case had been filed, and the evidence was irrefutable. It wasn't just about the loan agreement anymore. It wasn't just about the money she had stolen from me. It was about fraud, about the lies she had told, about the fact that she had used my love and trust as leverage to get what she wanted. I had proof. Photos of her spending the money on the beach house in Miami, text messages where she'd admitted openly that the cafe was already doomed, but she had to keep up the appearance. The contract she had signed, the one that clearly stated the loan was for the business. None of it had gone to the business. The judge listened intently as the lawyer presented everything. Every lie, every misstep, every fraudulent action. And as the judge turned to Linda, I could see the look of realization dawning on her face. She had always believed she was cleverer than me, always thought she could outsmart me, that her charm would be enough to get away with it. But now it was clear that the walls were closing in. Linda didn't say much in court. She sat there, her eyes flicking nervously from the lawyer to me. Her confidence was gone. There was no more arrogance in her posture, no more deflection or manipulation. It was just raw, naked fear. The verdict came down the following week. The house, the one she had turned into her sanctuary, was now mine. It was a clean win, and it felt empty. I didn't celebrate. I didn't feel any thrill. Not after everything I had gone through. Not after everything I had lost. There was no victory in seeing Linda in this state. There was no satisfaction in watching her crumble. I wanted her to feel the weight of her actions, though. I wanted her to understand that she couldn't just walk away unscathed. She had to face the consequences of what she had done to me, to our family. She had stolen from me, but more importantly, she had stolen from herself, the last thread of trust I had left. I watched as Linda's life, once filled with endless possibilities and promises of a bright future, unraveled before her eyes. Her cafe was officially in default, and the creditors, like vultures, were circling in. She couldn't keep up with the mounting bills and the failure of her business. She had let it all fall apart, and now there would be no one to save her. The public auction came a month later. The once bustling cafe was being sold to the highest bidder, a sad and fitting end to Linda's dreams. She had fought for a while, but it was clear she had no other option. I watched from the sidelines, the entire scene playing out like a scene from a play I no longer cared to participate in. The irony wasn't lost on me. The very thing she had once prided herself on, her independence, her business, was slipping through her fingers, all because of her own lies. That night, as I sat in the living room of the house that now belonged to me, I could hear the sounds of the auction from a distance. The chime of the gavel, the low murmur of people bidding, the sound of Linda's hopes being stripped away piece by piece. It almost felt like a dream. And then the phone rang. It was Linda. Her voice trembled when she spoke, but she tried to keep it together. "Alex," she said, barely above a whisper, I don't know what to do. I've lost everything. The cafe, the house. I thought you'd understand. I thought you'd help me. Please, just help me, Alex." For a moment I was silent. It felt like the world had stopped spinning. There was no satisfaction in hearing her beg. There was no victory in hearing the desperation in her voice. But I knew one thing. This was her reckoning. This was the moment she would have to face the consequences of everything she had done. I leaned back in my chair, my fingers curling around the edge of the phone. "Linda," I said, my voice calm, measured, "you made your choice. You chose greed. You chose lies. And now you'll have to deal with the consequences." I didn't wait for her response. I ended the call before she could say anything more. The next few weeks were quiet. Linda kept her distance, as I knew she would. She had nothing left to say. The house was mine. The cafe was gone. The money, the trust, everything was lost. And she would have to live with the knowledge that it was her own actions that had led to this. As I sat in the house that had once been her sanctuary, I couldn't help but feel the weight of everything that had transpired. What had started as a simple act of kindness, helping my sister, had turned into something much darker, much colder. And I had been forced to become someone I never thought I would be. Someone who could turn his back on family, who could take revenge in the most calculated, brutal way. But I would survive. I had always survived. And Linda, she would learn that the world doesn't owe anyone anything, not even family. The final blow was yet to come, though. It was one last, cold reminder of just how far I had gone and how far she had fallen. And that would come when I bought her cafe. The cafe had been sold. It was the final act in a long, painful saga, and yet it felt like nothing more than the closing of a door I had no interest in reopening. But I knew what had to be done. I had played the waiting game for a year, biding my time with patience and precision. Now it was time to finish it. I bought it. The cafe that had once been Linda's pride and joy, her dream, was now mine. I had the legal right to it, yes, but I wanted more than that. I wanted to twist the knife. I wanted to rub her face in it. But more than anything, I wanted her to know that she had lost not just money or business, but everything. The transformation began immediately. I couldn't leave the place as it was. It had to be different. Something entirely new. A tech hub, a modern, sleek co-working space. The cafe's quaint charm was gone, replaced by shiny, cold metal and glass. The baristas were replaced with sleek office chairs and high-speed internet. The smell of coffee was replaced by the hum of computers, the clack of keyboards. I didn't just want to take the cafe from Linda. I wanted to show her what her dream had become, a symbol of her failure. I wanted to show her how much of a fool she had been to think that everything could go unpunished. I hung photos on the walls, photos of her taken from her social media over the years, carefully chosen to capture her pride in the cafe, her happiness, her belief that she was invincible. In the middle of each photo was a small caption. "Thank you for the investment." I had her smiling in every picture. I had her triumphant. And underneath it all, I let her see that it was her trust in me, her belief in the brother she had betrayed, that had ultimately made this happen. The irony was not lost on me. The day the renovations were complete, I stepped back and admired the result. The place had gone from a struggling cafe to one of the most modern, well-equipped spaces in the city. It was thriving. The buzz of productivity filled the air, and there was no hint of the failure that had once plagued Linda's business. The final touch was the announcement. I had decided to host a small opening event, an invitation-only affair, bringing together investors and tech moguls to witness the grand unveiling of my new project. The invite was simple. You are cordially invited to the grand opening of the new tech hub and co-working space, formerly known as Linda's Café. The irony, the audacity of it was delicious. Linda's once beautiful dream was now a monument to her downfall. The event went off without a hitch. People marveled at the space, complimented the design, and praised the new direction I had taken. All the while, I knew that Linda would be out there somewhere, hearing about it, and I knew the moment she would walk past the building. I had been watching her for weeks now. She'd been staying in a small apartment on the outskirts of town, trying to keep her head down, licking her wounds, but she couldn't stay away forever. I knew she would eventually pass by, and she did. I was in the middle of a meeting when I saw her through the large glass windows. I didn't move. I stayed seated, watching her. She was walking down the sidewalk, her eyes downcast, her posture defeated. She didn't know I was there. She didn't know I was watching. Linda passed by the building slowly, her eyes flicking to the sign at the front. The words Tech Hub stood in bold, sleek letters across the window. She stopped for a moment, and I could see her shoulders tense. She had seen the sign. She knew. For a split second, she looked up at the windows, but she didn't dare glance inside. She couldn't. She was too ashamed, too humiliated to face the very place that had once symbolized her success, only to become the pinnacle of her failure. The coldness of what I had done settled over me like a weight. I didn't feel any joy, no exhilaration, no triumph. This was the price. This was what she had earned. I leaned back in my chair, the same chair I had sat in a year ago, when I made my decision to take everything back. I looked out the window at Linda, watching her slowly walk away, too broken to even consider looking back at the space she had once thought was hers. And that was when I realized this wasn't about the money. It never was. It wasn't about the business. It was about the betrayal. It was about the trust she had broken and the cold, calculated revenge I had executed to make sure she never forgot what she had done. She would always remember this day, and that more than anything was what made it all worth it. I don't know where Linda went after that or what became of her in the years that followed. Maybe she moved somewhere far away, trying to rebuild her life. Maybe she learned from her mistakes, or maybe she never did. But for me, I had won. I had restored the balance, and I had finally found peace.